Hey, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us for LinkedIn Live. We are thrilled and humbled to have Basha and Mira here from Priori, which is a LegalTech Fund portfolio company. Um, these two are kind of fascinating folks that we're hoping that you guys can learn a little bit from over the next couple minutes. Can we jump right in?
Absolutely.
Let's
Thanks
do
so
it.
much for joining us, Zach.
So excited to be here.
Awesome. High level, I've kind of asked this to all of our guests to date. Let's get to know you two before we jump into the company. Is there a fun fact about you folks that people wouldn't know about you that you're willing to share?
That's such a hard question. I don't think I don't know that being a founder and a parent makes you a very fun person. But here's one about me. I try to read at least 52 books a year.
Is that reading, or does that include like Audible, or is that straight reading and what's your priority or your mode?
I read on the Kindle app on my phone.
Okay, very
Yeah,
cool.
I do miss the aesthetic of the paper book, but I feel I'm just in so many different places, and it's so convenient to be able to do it on my phone.
And is there a queue for these books? Like, do you just like, are you constant? Because that's a lot that like have to think about and manage. Like, what's happening next week? How do you think about it?
I spend a lot of money with Amazon, um, basically. No, I usually I I usually try and download bunches of books at once, so there's always something new to start and pick up once I finish.
Awesome.
Mhm.
Um, I want to get into the founding story, but like I guess just and I know that did you know each other at law school? I'm trying to think about how.
We
Okay,
did.
so
We became friends at law
so
school for Priori.
if if you were not doing something in legal tech, what do you think you'd be doing right now?
So I would definitely be doing climate tech or renewables or recycling tech. Obviously, I'm addicted to hard things, but no question, that's what I'd be doing.
So you would not be using your law degree practicing. You would be doing something in the startup world.
I love it. I would never have guessed it in law school, but I'm definitely here to build companies.
Awesome. I guess on that note, how did the company come together? What was the origin story? How did you guys come together for this?
Well, Mira and I were dear friends in law school, and we graduated in 2010, which, as you may remember, was kind of a frothy time in the economy writ large, as well as in the legal industry. And there were a lot of murmurs about what the future of the business of law looked like. And we got really interested in how we could transform the legal industry to make it more transparent and accessible. And had the idea, as there were sort of the rise of the consumer marketplaces that are now familiar household names like the Ubers and Airbnbs of the world, that there was an opportunity to build a marketplace in legal that would be highly industry specific and would change the way, at the time, individuals and businesses alike hired and worked with outside counsel. So that germ of an idea became Priori, not without some roller coaster ride along the way.
And maybe give us a snapshot of what that is now. Like, what does that look like? What does that feel like? What types of who are your clients? Like a little bit of size, scope, all that fun stuff.
Absolutely. So we work with everything from multiple of the Fortune 10 to fast growing technology companies and everything in between to help them find, hire, and manage the right attorneys for projects, whether that's through our global vetted network of 8,000 plus in solo practitioners, boutique firms, mid-sized firms, legal operations professionals, and ALSPs, or through software that enables in-house teams to be able to better search and understand their own existing trusted network of counsel.
And the larger vision, like where do you think you are in the journey? Do you think like, wow, like I think the world moved towards or it will continue to move towards what you guys are thinking about. We are a user of your service. We love it. We have like lots of one-off things that pop up all the time. But where do you think like the world is with, are we just getting started? Is there like, do you think like, hey, we have visibility to like 1/100% to spend, or like, I mean, this is a pretty big thing you're talking about here.
It is, we've never been one for small things. But I think that the legal industry has moved so dramatically since we first started working on the initial iteration of Priori, and we do think it's only the beginning. And also that AI is going to fundamentally transform the landscape, I think, in a very equalizing way for different kinds of providers that will then continue to accelerate the need for services like ours.
Where would you handicap like we're at? Like, is this like just getting started?
This is just getting started.
Just getting started.
What do you think, Zach? Just getting started?
Oh, absolutely. I think you've seen it.
Cool.
No, completely. I just wanted to, I was just trying to like make sure you guys are aware of what we believe.
Right.
and we're on the same page.
100%.
No, when you you guys have some case studies that say we can take significant chunks out of legal spend.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess this whole system is designed with lots of middle folks in between, and you're kind of almost like connecting the right attorney to the right client at the right time. What are some like great examples of that, or like what works really well right now
in terms of where people are saving, where companies are saving the most?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I like to think about this in terms of kind of a right sourcing framework, which is there's a whole set of legal work that in-house teams are deciding who performs the work, whether it's internal resources or whether it's external resources. And then within internal and external resources, does this go to your AmLaw 10 firm? Does this go to an ALSP? Does this go to a boutique firm, a solo practitioner? And right now, many in-house teams look at this in kind of just like a bifurcated dichotomy. Like either my in-house lawyers are doing it or my big law firms are doing it. And the entire ecosystem, of which Priori is part, is getting so much more nuanced, right? There are AI tools that can supercharge internal in-house work. There are legal operations professionals who can do things, and that lawyers were once doing themselves that doesn't need to be performed by a lawyer. There are managed services providers and LPOs. And then there is thinking about what kind of lawyer and law firm is best suited based on risk, complexity, and scope of a project. And the way that I think we add the most value is when legal department leaders are really thinking about that framework and realize that the majority, maybe that's a bold word, a substantial quantity of the work that they're sending out to big law firms could be done just as well, if not better, by a range of smaller providers, and certainly do that more cost effectively. And that's where we come in and can add a tremendous amount of value.
And on the other side, on the attorney side, I mean, do you have people that are making that like effectively their livelihood is through you guys and back and forth, and they're almost full time with you?
We have lawyers. We have sort of have an internal joke that like it would be a good gig to be a Priori lawyer. We have lawyers through the Priori platform who are making, well into the seven figures on an annual basis. And that's certainly not everybody. But that opportunity definitely exists. And it's one of the things that our team is extremely proud of too, in terms of how we're changing. We talk a lot about the corporate side of things, but I think we've really changed the landscape for small firms as well, and provided them with platform to build their practice.
Yeah, it's kind of like there's always something to help fill their inventory or their open time.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, domestic versus international. Do you guys cover the globe, and how do people think about that with you?
We cover the globe, all 50 states, more than 70 countries.
Wow. Is there a stat that you guys think about internally that kind of keeps you going as entrepreneurs, or is there like something that wouldn't be obvious to people listening here that like gets you excited? Like if there's somebody working on access issues, they can say the average attorney is $364 an hour, and the annual salary is $19 an hour. I'm curious if there's stuff like that just says, if there's anything that like keeps you going, or stats like that you've come across that are interesting.
So for me, it's less the statistics than the sort of like the moments of magic, right? When people do realize that cost savings, or sometimes it's less about cost savings and more about finding a very specific need that's crucial to a business very quickly in a way that would have otherwise taken weeks to find the right person. That moment where the combination of the technology and all the data we have about the lawyers in our network and the service layer comes together to produce an outcome for the lawyer or for the client that just wouldn't have been possible without a marketplace. And for me, those are the moments of the like, yes, this is exactly why an integrated legal marketplace that's truly global can drive so much value for clients and lawyers alike.
Gotcha. And when you think of some of your corporate clients, like where do you think we are in the shift with like legal operations and corporates? Do you think we're same construct, like super early innings? Do you think we're kind of in the mid innings there?
I think that one's a more complicated question, because I believe strongly that legal operations and legal technology teams will be a vital part of the structure of a legal department going forward. But I think that everything is shifting so quickly that the status quo of a year ago is going to look very different in 2, 5, 10 years. And I don't quite know what those teams, and I think that's what a lot of companies are wrestling with. I don't quite know how those teams should be structured to support the legal department of the future.
Yeah, I think.
And so maybe, oh, good.
No, go ahead.
No, please.
I was just going to say, I think, one of the things that has been important to us as we've built is to build technology that is useful for sort of the folks who come at law from a legal operations or just general operational bent, but also technology that can be used by lawyers in the stack and make sense to them too. Because I think there are definitely questions about how folks are going to structure these departments in ways that work on a company by company basis. And we've tried to meet both those use cases.
So Basha, to go out to your 5-10 year comment, I mean, any thoughts as to, obviously there's going to be more alternative ways to what we would think of than has happened to more alternative ways to solve your legal needs, you guys certainly being a big player in that. Mm-hmm. But curious if any vision as to how you guys evolve in the next 5 to 10 years and what that looks like.
I was going to answer something a little bit more about the market, if you don't.
Go for it. Right? Yeah, please.
Which is, I think that as we think about what the overall market for legal services will look like in 5 to 10 years, there is, in my view, a misapprehension that AI is going to cause a contraction in the market for legal services, whereas I believe that it is going to cause a radical expansion in the market for legal services by lowering the barrier to access to legal services, which is like overwhelming net positive from my perspective. But that is going to increase the need for lawyers everywhere and for complex legal work everywhere. And that to me is going to be I really like, I feel like I'm a contrarian here. But in terms of how this relates to Priori specifically. I do also think that the legal department and law firm of the future is going to look different than, as we were talking about with what the legal operations function will look like, is going to look different than it does today. And it's going to need to be a lot more flexible in terms of talent. And that as we've seen in other industries, that the W-2 model might not be the way that the industry evolves. And I think that's exactly where we are positioned to, be a vital part of how both law departments and law firms structure for the future.
Awesome. So look, we've seen these. We've done a couple of these LinkedIn Lives. We've seen them get a couple of views like in real time, but then thousands afterwards. If there's an ask you have for the people watching now or the future, what's the ask? And and how can people get in touch with you if on the flip side?
So an ask from my perspective, not as it relates to Priori, but just in terms of the entire legal startup ecosystem, is to vote with your pocketbook, spend money with legal tech startups. There is a lot of really interesting innovation and a lot of founders and engineers who want to work and collaborate with you to build really cool stuff. But these companies only exist beyond delightful venture capital funding from folks like Zach. When companies really are willing to spend and partner with startups. So please, I know there is often trepidation. There's compliance, there's privacy, there are all sorts of corporate hurdles everywhere. But I think that we are a symbiotic ecosystem, and I would ask everybody who is listening to take a little bit of a risk to pay for the pilot. Don't and really don't see us as vendors, see us as partners.
Yeah, and I would also just for folks who are thinking about getting into legal tech, I've for a while it was no one ever does this, and now I've started to hear the hesitation. Well, now legal tech is like such a crowded space. It's also a wonderful space. It's a space with a lot of area for innovation. So don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're always excited to talk to folks who are thinking about entering the industry.
And in terms of how to get in touch with us, first name, last name, priorilegal.com.
And I love the counsel of vote with your pocketbook and take the call. Like I think those are two things that if people did, people continue to do, because I think in general it's a pretty collaborative space and people are trying to help each other out. I know that you guys have tried to help an extraordinary number of entrepreneurs out and the entire space, and everything you're saying is from your learnings as to how impactful some of these early people, I'm sure some of your early customers were to you.
100%.
With that, thank you both. This was pretty awesome, and we would encourage everybody to check out the amazing work you guys are doing.
Yeah, thank you so much, Zach, and thank you for everything you do for the ecosystem.
Yeah, we are incredibly grateful for your fun, Zach. And
all right, have a great one. All right, well, thank you, and we are only here to work with folks like you. Cheers. Thanks, guys.